morning and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Leandro Taberner. I will be guiding this session on the UNOE transportation for the TM project. Okay, I think we can start. We have started the recording for this session, and as Brian was mentioning before, you can make use of the chat if you have any question or you have more comments, and then particularly the Q&A option if you have any question, because we will be collecting all the different questions together with the answers into a document that we will be providing to all of you after the remote sessions and also after the in-person sessions. Okay, so so let's proceed with the presentation. As we said yesterday in the kickoff BTC, this is the first end-to-end presentation, and we will be talking today about the process for UNOE, right? So for UN-owned equipment, and we'll be providing to you an end-to-end overview of the process, which are the different roles and steps involved in the system from the beginning till the end. Okay, it's going to be mainly a conceptual presentation, and based on this end-to-end process, in the in-person session we will be doing more advanced sessions and basically more hands-on exercises. Okay. Okay, so let's proceed. The first slide that you are going to be seeing in this presentation, it's kind of not only a slide but also the end-to-end flow, and we'll be referring to this poster throughout all the training. Okay, even in the in-person training, we will be referring to this poster so that we make sure that we are all in the same on the same pace. Okay, and we understand where we are in the end-to-end process. Okay, so let me begin by presenting the end-to-end poster. Okay, so we'll be having a phase or that we will call the procurement phase. And in this presentation, this procurement phase, we will be talking about UNOE equipment. Then we'll have a second phase that will be the plant transportation phase. And in this plant transportation phase, we will be having two different stages. Okay, so we will have a stage that is the responsibility of the goods vendor to provide the transportation. This is the goods vendor stage that applies to DAP Incoterms and to some virtual Incoterms like FCAJ, okay, where the goods vendor is responsible for a stage in the transportation process. Okay, so in the plant transportation, we'll be having two different stages: one where the goods vendor is responsible for the transportation, and the second stage in which the freight forwarder, right, in which the UN is responsible for providing the transportation, and the UN will look for the freight forwarder to provide these transportation services. And this freight forwarder stage will apply to the X-Works Incoterm and also to the FCAJ and other Incoterms. Okay, so for FCAJ and other virtual Incoterms, we'll be having two different phases. One stage for the goods vendor and the second stage for the freight forwarder. And this is what we call the plant transportation phase. After we finalize this plant transportation, and don't worry, we'll be talking more in depth about each of these phases. Okay, so we'll be providing the different steps for the procurement phase and also for the plant transportation phase. After we have planned the transportation, we will do the procurement of the freight, very similar as we currently do. So we will be raising a shopping cart to procure these freight services. Okay, and the steps you will see that are very similar to the ones you have right now. And after we have completed this freight procurement, and we have already the freight forwarder awarded with the PO. Okay, we will start the execution, right? The execution and monitoring phase, in which the goods vendor and in which the freight forwarder will have access to the carrier collaboration portal to submit all the different events and all the different attachments and related documents. So in this execute and monitor phase, we will also have two different stages. One in which the goods vendor will be able to submit events and attachments, and the second stage in which the freight forwarder, the vendor providing the freight services, will be able to connect and providing the events and the attachments related to their shipments. Okay, so this is the end-to-end poster that we will be using throughout most of our sessions, and it will be also guiding our practical exercise during the in-person sessions. Okay, and this presentation is going to be a review of this poster through explaining the different steps in the different phases, in the procurement phase, in the plant transportation, in the freight procurement, and also during the execution and monitoring of the transportation. All right. So the end-to-end process is initiated, in the case of UNOE, is initiated in the procurement phase by raising a shopping cart for goods in SRM. Okay, the same thing that it's currently the process for any type of goods. Remember that for phase 1, UNOE will apply only to vehicles, so we will be procuring vehicles that we will have to plan their transportation with the new system. Okay, so the requisitioner will raise the shopping cart for vehicles. This shopping cart will get approved, and then we'll have a PO that will also have to be approved. Okay, so no differences in the documents that needs to be raised in the system, in Umoja. So which are the differences in this procurement phase for goods? So things we need to consider, and this is just an overview, and we will be talking about this more during the in-person sessions. Which are the changes? So we need to consider that, the contract catalog, as we always had, should be the preferred option. Okay, and then in the contract catalog is where we have the different Incoterms and the different prices, depending if we include or if the UN is responsible for the transportation or the vendor is responsible for the transportation. This remains as it currently is. Then, first change. So the freight services, in case we are using virtual Incoterms, shouldn't be included in the same shopping cart. So let's say that we are raising a shopping cart to request some vehicles, and we are using a virtual Incoterm, let's say Xworks. The freight services shouldn't be included in the same shopping cart. And we will be saying that the freight services will be procured in a different or using a different shopping cart and a different process. Okay, so no freight line together with the goods. That's the first change. What else? Then the delivery address in the shopping cart and in the PO that appears in SRM, it's the key field for the new transportation management module. For the transportation management module, this delivery address will become the final destination in TM. All right, and we will be talking about this a little bit more. So there will be a new you need to consider that you need to select an existing delivery address and not use the free text, because otherwise that will cause problems in the routing in TM. Okay, so delivery address is a key field for TM. Purchasing groups, it's also key. So the purchasing group you select in SRM will derive the planner group in TM. So in phase 1, now that we are talking about UNOE, only purchasing group 05, the one that is related to vehicles, will be the only one for UNOE that will send the transportation requirements to TM. Okay, so for all the other type of commodities, there will be no planning. That will come in a different phase of the project. Okay, so for phase 1, that is starting the 15th of January, only shopping carts with purchasing group PD vehicles team will go into TM, right? What else? The Incoterm location, okay, that will also change, okay, because there will be a matchbox selection, so it will not be as it currently is, a free text. So the location together with the Incoterm, you will be able to select from a matchbox, okay, to select from an available list of options, because that Incoterm will have an impact in the route in TM. It will become the handover location for the transportation, okay, at which location UN becomes responsible for the items. Okay. Then the supplier selection. If we are selecting an item from the contract catalog, the supplier is already selected by using the contract catalog. Otherwise, when doing the PO, the supplier is selected. So this supplier selected in SRM will automatically have an impact in the new system, because this supplier will get automatically access to the carrier collaboration portal so that they can submit the related events. So let's say that we are talking about vehicles. Let's say that the supplier is Toyota. So if a new shopping cart or if a new PO is granted to Toyota, after the PO it's approved, the vendor, Toyota in this case, will have access to the carrier collaboration portal to submit the events and the documents related to that shipment. Okay. And lastly, the delivery date that is specified in the shopping cart is the baseline date for TM to calculate all the other related dates, like the departure date for the different stages, the handover date, the arrival destination. So there will be some rules that will allow to calculate the different related dates based on that delivery date specified in SRM. Okay, so no changes in the process, but few things to consider in the SRM part. Okay. All right. So let's go back to our end-to-end poster. So after we have our PO approved in SRM, the system, as we currently have in Umoja, the system will create automatically the inbound deliveries. Okay. And we'll have this. We have the option in the inbound delivery, right? The inbound coordinator will have the option to perform packing in the inbound delivery document. And this packing step is important because we will need to fill in the system the volume and weight for the items, for the vehicles that we are transporting, right? So as you might know, in the material master, we don't have the weight and volume for the different materials, and that's why we need to specify the weight and volume of the different materials by using this pack step in the inbound delivery, right? So once we have the inbound delivery, the inbound coordinator can execute the packing functionality to specify the weight, volume, even the length, width, and height of the different vehicles, right? Okay, so the inbound delivery is created in ECC, and then we'll use the pack to specify the weight and volume, because as of today, the material master doesn't have that information. In the material master, we only have default values, okay? So no volume, no weight. And we have to use the pack functionality to reflect the real volume and the real weight. And we will do that by doing packing and by creating what we will call the handling units. And we will use these packaging materials to reflect the real volume and weight. Okay. Especially for vehicles, a new packaging material that will be used to, because most of the vehicles are shipped as a rolling stock, okay? So a new packaging material for this rolling stock will be configured in the system, and by using that packaging material, we'll be able to specify the weight and the volume. Okay? Once we have the vendors onboarded in the electronic data interchange, so once the vendors are providing information directly from their systems, the weight and volume will be provided automatically from their systems with the advanced shipping notice document. Okay, so when we have the vendors onboarded on EDI, the weight and volume will come automatically from their systems. But up until that point, we will have to use the pack functionality to be providing manually this information in the system. All right. Okay. Let's continue. So any question until this point?
So yes, Leandro, we did have a question before in the chat. I recommended it was written also in the Q&A if you want to address it now, but it's coming from Asmi. Is the freight line in goods shopping carts mandatory, or will it continue to be mandatory, or eventually this condition will be removed further down the line?
Yeah, so thank you, Asmi, for the question. So as we were saying, the line for the freight will not be mandatory for vehicles, okay, the ones that are being implemented in phase 1, and the freight services will be raised in a different shopping cart. So you are used to put together the goods and the freight services, but as of 15th January, you will not need to be including the freight line, okay, together with the vehicles. Okay. All right. So let's continue. Or is there any other question, Ryan? Okay.
Do have one more question again. I think Asmi is about to ask another question. Asmi, feel free to ask the question. Either let me know if you want. I can unmute you directly. Hello, Asmi. Okay, well, you're unmuted if you wish to speak up. If not, we'll just continue, and you can just write the question in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll address it later.
All right, so let's continue. Okay, so let's move back. So now we have completed packing, and we have our weight and volume included in the system. What will happen? So after we have our PO approved, we have performed packing, and then the integration with ECC and TM will automatically happen. So at this stage, the system will create some TM documents, so automatically, so no need to do anything. The system, the UMOE system, will create what we call the DTR document, the delivery-based transportation requirement, and will also create another type of document that is called the freight unit. So these two documents, the DTR and the freight units, are automatically created by the system once we have a PO fully approved in SRM. Okay. So what are these two documents in TM? All right. So as we were saying, this DTR, the delivery-based transportation requirement, and the freight units are automatically created and are also available in ECC in a new tab that is called the Team Status tab. So inbound coordinators by connecting in ECC and using the normal T code to look for the inbound deliveries, there will be a new tab, the TM status tab, where they will be able to see the TM related documents. So for example, for this particular inbound delivery, we can see that we have DTR, that is this document starting with 11, with 11, and then we also have the freight unit, the document starting with 41. So these two documents are also visible from ECC, and they are also visible in TM. So there is an integration between ECC and TM. With the current configuration, there is a one-to-one relationship between inbound deliveries, DTRs, and freight units, meaning that for each inbound delivery, the system will create one DTR document and one freight unit. So with the current configuration, the relationship is one-to-one between these documents. The DTR document in TM, it's the same. It contains the same type of information as the inbound delivery, but in TM. So we will be able to see the DTR already in TM. And the freight unit represent a set of goods that are transported together in the same shipment. Okay, so it's the smallest unit that can be transported. So if you are the planner and you are planning the shipment, you can combine different freight units together in the same shipment. But the freight unit is the smallest part you can include in the same shipment. Okay. And as we were saying, so each inbound delivery will create one DTR and one freight unit. You already know that in a PO, freight units will be created based on the different delivery dates and Incoterm. So same PO can have several inbound deliveries based on the different delivery dates and Incoterms. So for each inbound delivery, then the system will automatically create one DTR and one related freight unit. Okay. All right. So the freight unit, in the freight unit document, you will be able to see the items being shipped, the different stages in case we have, for example, goods vendor stage and a freight forwarder stage. In case we are talking about an FCA Incoterm, we'll be able to see the different related documents. So from the freight unit, you can also see the related DTR, the related inbound delivery, so all the predecessors and follow-on documents. And you can also see the status, okay? If the freight unit was already planned, if it's pending planning, the different status information about that freight unit. Okay, so you can see that there is an integration between ECC and TM. The system is automatically creating the DTR and freight unit from the approved PO in SRM. And then we are going to be starting the planned transportation phase. So in this planned transportation phase, we will first talk about the stage for the goods vendor, when the goods vendor, let's say Toyota, is responsible for transporting or to ship the items, okay, until the mission or until a handover location, for example, with an FCA Incoterm. In the case of the goods vendor stage, the system will automatically plan that stage for us. Okay, so if we are talking about a DAP Incoterm, or if we are talking about an FCA Incoterm, if we are talking about the goods vendor stage, the system, Umoja will automatically plan that part of the transportation. So we'll automatically create the freight orders, the FOs, for that part of the shipment. So when we are talking about freight orders, you will get used to that. Freight orders are the documents in the system that reflect the different legs of our shipment. So in the case of a goods vendor stage, Umoja will automatically plan our shipment will automatically assign the carrier because the goods vendor is responsible for transporting the items, in this case, for example, Toyota. So Umoja will automatically plan the shipment, and then as a planner, we still have the option to go to the system and change that automatic planning. So let's say that based on the transportation network, the system automatically specified a route and a date. Then as a planner, we can go and modify that default route automatically created by the system. Okay, and this applies to the part of the shipment that the manufacturer, right, the goods vendor, is responsible for. So let's go through it. So for the goods vendor stage, that applies to DAP and FCA and other related Incoterms, the vendor is responsible for the shipment up to the agreed location. Based on the transportation network, this is what we call the TM master data. Okay, and we will be talking about this master data further on in the different sessions. The system will select the default route between the vendor location and the delivery location. Let's say the mission or the handover location for the FCA Incoterm. And we'll create as many FOs, as many freight orders as legs in the route. Okay. So there might be, let's say, for example, that the vendor is Toyota, that is in Yokohama. So the default route could be could have a first leg, first to reach, let's say, Yokohama port, and from the Yokohama port, a second leg could be to reach a different port. Okay, let's say that it could be Durban port as a handover location. Okay. The goods vendor will be automatically assigned as carrier into these newly created freight orders, and these automatically created freight orders will be in ready for execution status, and that means that at that right moment, Toyota or any other goods vendor will be able to connect to the carrier collaboration portal and submit events or attachments by themselves in the carrier collaboration portal. Okay. As we said before, as a TM planner, we still have the option to modify the default route, and we can go and recreate the routing and specify, for example, a different transportation route. Okay, in case we want to reflect the real route, so that the goods vendor can indicate the events and the attachments for the actual route. Okay, okay, so we have explained the goods vendor stage. In case we are talking about ex-works, we don't have a goods vendor stage because the UN is responsible for the entire transportation. And in case we are talking about FCA Incoterm, the freight forwarder stage will come afterwards, after the goods vendor stage. Okay, but I think that we have a question relating to we just discussed. So Brian, please.
Yes, Leandro. Actually, the question from Asmi from before was, the inbound delivery will not be created automatically anymore and shall be created manually once ASN is received.
Yeah.
That was a yes, so you answered that as you were speaking.
Okay. But the ASN, okay, Asmi, if I'm not mistaken, will only come when the vendors are onboarded with the EDI. Okay. So in case we have vendors with the EDI, the document, okay, will have the advanced shipping document, the advanced shipping notice, and in that case, you're right. But for vendors that don't go with the EDI, we still need to update the weight and volume in the inbound delivery. And if I'm not mistaken, the inbound deliveries will still be created automatically by the system. But we can, yeah,
I believe
further discuss, yeah.
I believe he wants to add something to that. Hold on. Asmi, you raised your hand in the WebEx. Do you want to speak up? And no, but okay, if he does, he'll let me know. We do have another one from Li Zhu. Currently, one contract only has one Incoterm, either DAP or FCA. Would this allow procurement to add multiple Incoterms to one contract, both DAP and FCA? Now, this is something we can answer now or maybe leave for later.
I don't think that has changed. Okay, so I don't have any news about any change in mixing different Incoterms in the same contract. Okay, we'll write the question down and maybe we can clarify.
Okay, and any updates we'll get to later on. Thank you, Leandro. So we can move on because there is nothing else so far.
Thank you, Brian. And remember that we are providing just an overview, and we will be talking about this process throughout the different sessions only in the during the in-person training. Okay, but at least you have an overview of how the system is designed and how the different phases will work. Okay, from procurement until the execution of the transportation. Okay, so let's continue talking about the freight forwarder stage. Okay, so after the goods vendor stage, in case we're talking about the FCA, we'll have the freight forwarder stage, and the planning for that stage will not be happening automatically. So the TM planner will need to do the planning, okay, for the stage for which the UN is responsible for. Okay, it will also be done in TM, the new transportation management module, and the planner will need, so there will be functionality in the system, that is the transportation cockpit, okay, in which the TM planner will be able to select the different freight units that they want to combine in the same shipment. Okay, so the first step for the TM planner will be to launch the transportation cockpit and select which freight units needs to be combined in the same shipment. Based on that, the system will provide some shipment proposals, some transportation proposals based on the master data. And based on the different proposals, the planner will look at different fields like duration, distances, and the cost, and will select the best proposal for that particular shipment. And once the best proposal has been selected, then the system will calculate automatically the charge estimate, okay, for that particular route, and the system will create the freight orders for that for the freight forwarder stage. Okay, so there will be some hints from the system in order to select the best route, but the action is initiated and completed by the planner. That works in a different way as for the goods vendor, where the planning was done automatically, and then the planner was allowed to change it if there was any difference. But for the freight forwarder stage, the planner has to initiate the planning, select the different freight units, and select the best route for that particular shipment. Okay, and for the freight forwarder stage is where we will have the system will allow to generate the statement of work document that will serve as an input for the procurement for the freight procurement phase. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more in depth about this freight forwarder stage. So for the freight forwarder stage, the planning is initiated by the planner by selecting the different freight units in the transportation cockpit. So it applies to X works or FCA or other related Incoterms, okay, in which the UN is responsible for the transportation. There will be a functionality in TM that we call the transportation cockpit, and we will have different profiles available to filter by different Incoterms. So, for example, XWorks or FCA, what in the system is called non-DAP, non-XWorks. And based on that profile, based on those profiles, we will be able to select or to filter what kind of freight units we want to see in the transportation cockpit. Okay, so in this case that we are planning the freight forwarder stage, we will select the freight forwarder stage profile, and we can decide if we want to filter by XWorks or by other non-DAP, non-XWorks Incoterm. Okay, so we will select the profile in the transportation cockpit, and the system will select or will display the different freight units that comply with that profile that I selected. And the system will allow us to consolidate freight units with the same pickup and destination locations and in a time window of 7 days, meaning that if the pickup date for several freight units is less than 7 days, the system will allow us to combine those freight units in the same shipment so that we can ship multiple freight units in the same route and on the same dates. Okay. Right. So the transportation cockpit will allow the planner to select multiple freight units so that we can combine different freight units in the same shipment. Okay. All right. So once we have selected the freight units, the planner will ask the system to display the different shipment proposals, and the system will display based on the transportation master data, the system will display different proposals that so there will be screens specifically for transportation proposals where the system will display different routes and different options available for or to transport those freight units. Okay, so in this screen we have the different transportation proposal numbers. So in this case we can see transportation proposal 11 and 12. Okay, but I think that in this example I had up to 20 different proposals. You can see that in that proposal different freight units are combined. So in this case we are asking the system to combine freight unit ending with 401 and freight unit ending in 400. Okay, so we did that by selecting these two freight units in the transportation cockpit, and we asked the system to ship these two freight units together, and that's why the proposal included the shipment combining these two freight units. So these two freight units came from a different inbound delivery. Okay, and as a planner we can ask the system to ship those freight units in the same shipment. We can see in green the legs for the goods vendor stage. So in this case the example, it's an FCA example. That's why we can see the goods vendor stage from the vendor location, that in this case is this code starting with the SU, up to the handover location that was specified in the shopping cart. So when the shopping cart was raised for this vendor, Durban port was specified as handover location, and that's why the system automatically planned the goods vendor stage from the vendor location to the handover location. And then we have the legs for the freight forwarder, and this is the stage that we are currently planning. So we are planning the freight forwarder stage, meaning from the handover location until the final destination, until, in this case, it's AMIS. It's an AMIS mission. And we can see that the system is proposing us to send the items via Mombasa, okay, from Durban to Mombasa and from Mombasa to AMIS. Okay. So here we have the proposal and also the dates. So we will see in the proposal the stages that, or the goods vendor stage that was already planned automatically by the system, and the one that we are currently planning. So the one that we are currently planning appears in with this symbol here, with this paper with the green check mark, and that means that we are currently planning those 2 legs. Okay, we can even see the means of transportation for each leg. Okay, so the first leg between Durban and Mombasa is going to be sea, and the second one with truck from Mombasa to AMIS using the truck as means of transportation. All right. So that's how the system will display the different transportation proposals, so that we as a transportation planner can select the best proposal. And in here, besides the route, we can also see the distance, right, appearing, the duration. So we can see the duration for each leg, and it's not displayed here in this screenshot, but you will be able to see also the estimated cost for each particular leg. Okay, so based on that, the planner can select the best proposal based on the different fields, the route, and also distance, duration, and estimated cost. Okay. All right. So let's continue. So once we have selected the best TM proposals, the system will create the freight orders for the selected route. So in our example that we were sending the vehicles or the items from Durban to Mombasa, and then from Mombasa to AMIS, it's a route with 2 different legs, and that means that the system will be creating 2 different freight orders. So there is a freight order for each leg. Okay, so 1 freight order for each leg. In our example, 2. Okay. So in our example, the system will be creating 2 different freight orders. First one from Durban to Mombasa, second one from Mombasa to AMIS, to South Sudan. The carrier, it will be defaulted to a dummy carrier. Okay, so at this stage, we still don't know which freight forwarder will be performing that shipment, and the system will default the carrier to this dummy carrier. This dummy carrier, or the carrier, will be populated or will be completed once we know which freight forwarder will be providing the freight. Okay, and also the charges will be automatically estimated by the system based on the master data. So when we talk next week about the master data, there will be some tables so that the master data maintainers can specify how much does it cost to bring items between different locations, and there will be some parameters, right? So there will be cost, for example, per cubic meter, or depending if we are talking about dangerous goods or not. So there will be some tables to maintain how much does it cost to bring items between different locations, and specify for different type of materials. Okay? So based on that master data, the system will calculate the estimated charges that will appear. So in this case, the screenshot refers to a freight order. It's in this case, it's a UNOE plant. It's a freight order related to a freight forwarder. The freight orders numbers start with 61, and there will be different tabs with the different information for that freight order. So kind of general data, the different items being carried together, within that freight order, the different stages, and there is one tab that displays the information about the charges. And you will see there the estimated amount for that freight order, and that amount is based on the master data, but also on the weight and volume specified. Remember that when we did pack in the inbound delivery, we specified the volume, right, for the items. So as the charges master data is maintained per cubic meter, these estimated values will be calculated based on the master data, but also considering the volume of the items being shipped. Okay? That's why it's important that we specify the actual volume of the items being shipped. Okay? All right, so before we move ahead, any questions so far? Okay.
No, everything is okay, Leandro. You can keep going. If anybody would like to raise a hand, I can unmute their microphone. Now is the time to ask a question, or you can write it in the chat.
Okay. We still have one more step in the freight forwarder stage that relates to the statement of work. Okay, so from the freight order document, the system will allow us to download or to print the statement of work that will serve as an input for the procurement of the freight. Okay, so this statement of work, the SOW document, can be downloaded from the freight order. So this SWO document can be printed and can be edited offline in case you want to amend anything before you initiate the freight procurement. And as we said, it's the input for the freight procurement phase. The statement of work document, it can be printed from each freight order, and once you print it, the details you'll see are all the different details related to the freight orders that comprises the entire shipment, meaning that if from a freight order you see the scope of work document, the statement of work document, you will see the different freight units that were combined together in that shipment. So you will not only see the freight order, the one you opened, in this case is the 624, but you will also see the freight orders that relate to the same shipment. So in this case, remember that we had two different legs, one from Durban to Mombasa and another one from Mombasa to Durban. So in this case, the scope of work document will have the two legs in the same SWO. Sorry, SOW. Sorry, there is a typo here, so it's SOW, okay? So from the statement of work, we can print the document, and then we can edit it afterwards. There will be the template will be different if we are talking about UNOE or COE and troops. So the developers are working in different templates for each type of commodity, and the one for UNOE will be specifically for UNOE items. Okay. All right. Okay. So once we have this statement of work document, we can initiate the freight procurement that applies for virtual Incoterms. And this process, it's very similar to what you currently do, okay? So it's initiated in SRM with the shopping cart for the freight. The only difference is that the freight, remember that we were discussing before with ASME. So before, the freight services were included in the same shopping cart as for the goods. Now we will be raising a specific shopping cart for the freight, okay? And in that freight shopping cart is where we can attach as a reference the statement of work document, okay? Then the following steps in the in SRM are very similar, okay? So we'll have the approval step for the freight shopping cart, and then the steps to select shopping cart from the source cockpit and create the RFX document. Then we'll have offline the solicitation with the different freight forwarders, okay? So the different bits and the management of those bits, okay? And then once we have the awarded freight forwarder, we'll be creating in SRM the purchase order for the freight, okay? So this purchase order will be also approved. So no, as you saw, no many changes in that procurement phase, okay? In the future, so in the future of next phases of this project, so TM would also allow to perform all this bidding in the system, but as of today, we are maintaining in SRM the part of the freight procurement, okay? And the process remains as it is right now, okay? So no changes, so it remains the same as it currently is. Things to be considered, as we said, so no more one-line shopping cart, one-line freight line in the goods shopping cart. Then we have the statement of work document that is generated automatically by the system in TM. And then for the freight procurement, you can always refer to TM for the transportation requirements. So all the transportation requirements besides the statement of work document are available in TM. So that system is the single source of information for the requirements for that particular shipment. Okay? But the process to for the solicitation and to award the freight forwarder remains as it is right now. Okay? The additional steps after we have the awarded freight forwarder is to update TM with the results of the solicitation. So we will need to enter in TM and assign. Remember that the system defaulted the dummy carrier as carrier, and now that we have the freight forwarder, we should be updating the freight order with the actual freight forwarder. Indicate also the PO number that relates to that freight, so that by assigning the carrier, the freight forwarder will also have access to the carrier collaboration portal and submit the related events and attachments. Okay. Besides assigning the carrier and the PO number, it's also possible to enter in DFOs and to amend the route, the dates, and the charges. Okay, so we'll be talking about this in the next slide. So once the freight services are awarded, we need to enter in TM the selected carrier and enter also the PO number related to that freight procurement. Once we assign the carrier in the freight order, the freight order status changes to ready for execution, meaning that the freight forwarder will be able to enter in the carrier collaboration portal and submit events and attachments. So the freight forwarder will only see in the carrier collaboration portal the freight orders for which they have been assigned as carrier. That's why it's important, it's a mandatory step to go in TM and select the awarded carrier. Otherwise, the freight forwarder will not be able to see those freight orders in the carrier collaboration portal. Okay. If the route, so if there is a change between the planned route and the actual route, let's say that in our example, we plan the route to be Turban, Mombasa, Mombasa, Amis. If by any reason the freight forwarder complying with the technical specifications chooses a different route and UN is okay with that change, we can still amend the route and select, for example, a different route. Instead of Mombasa, we could select a different stopover location. Okay, so we can still go and change the route. We could change the dates, so from the planned dates automatically by the system, in case the actual dates indicated by the freight forwarder are different, we can still go in TM and amend the dates, and the charges will need to be updated. So up until this point, we had only an estimation automatically calculated by the system based on the master data. Once we have the freight services awarded and we know the final price, we should be updating the freight order with the actual charges, and there will be specific fields to fill in these actual charges, meaning that we will not be removing the initial estimation, and the system will still allow us to compare between the estimated charges and the actual charges, so that we can run reports, and if needed, and if there are differences or real difference between the estimated charges and the actual charges, then we might need to go to the master data and update the rate so that the estimations are done more accurate. Okay. All right. So that was the end of the freight procurement phase, and we can move forward to the execution and monitoring phase. Before we start with the execution and monitoring phase, any questions so far?
Thank you, Leandro. At this point, no more questions. Please, anyone, if you do have a question, now would be the time to ask it. Just write it in the chat or speak up, or let me know that you want to speak up and I will unmute you, so we can give Leandro 30 seconds to breathe.
Thank you, Brian. So we have completed mainly the procurement, plant transportation, and the procurement of the freight. And now we can start with the execution. All right. So for the execution and the monitoring of the transportation. Okay. So as we said, for the plan phase, we can have two different stages, right, in this execution. So we can have one stage for which the goods vendor is responsible for the transportation, okay, and the second stage for which the freight forwarder is responsible for the transportation. In the case of an FCA, we have both stages. In the case of delivery at place, we only have one stage because the goods vendor is responsible for the entire shipment. And in the case of X-Works, we only have the freight forwarder stage because the UN, using the freight forwarder, is responsible for bringing the items from the goods vendor until up to the final destination. So in the execute and monitor phase, as we said, we will have two different platforms. So we have a new platform that is the Carrier Collaboration Portal, here appearing in purple. The Carrier Collaboration Portal is meant to be a platform for external partners to connect and submit information to the UN. Okay, so the carrier collaboration portal will allow, in this case, goods vendors, like for example Toyota, to connect and see the freight orders for which they are responsible for, and submit events, for example, the loading start, the loading completed, so all the related events to their freight orders. These freight orders, remember, that were the ones that were automatically created by the system in the planning. And they can also use the carrier collaboration portal to upload or to submit the related attachments. Okay, so like the proof of delivery or other related attachments. So the carrier collaboration portal is available for external vendors. In this case, we are talking about manufacturers or goods vendors, and the same events and attachments can be reported from TM. So if we are a planner, or if we are an FO manager and we want to see the events submitted by the vendor, or if, for example, if the vendor cannot submit the events, we can still do it on behalf of the vendor directly in TM. So as a planner or as a FO manager, we can still go in TM and see the events and attachments submitted by the vendor. And if they cannot do it, if the external vendor cannot do it, we can still do it in TM. So TM will also have all the information that is available in the carrier collaboration portal. Okay. So as we said, for the goods vendor stage, the external partner will be provided credentials to log in the carrier collaboration portal, what we call the CCP. This is the portal for external partners. Goods vendor will only see their freight orders, right? The freight orders for which they are the carriers. Okay, we said that for goods vendor, the system was automatically assigning them as carriers because the goods vendor was already defaulted from the purchase order. Okay, and they will be able to submit events and upload attachments in CCP. Events like we will have planned events like loading start and end, departure, arrival, and they will be able to submit other unexpected events like delays, damages, etc. So we will have two different types of events that they can submit in CCP. And they will be able to submit also attachments like the packing list, the bill of lading, proof of deliveries, and so on. So all the related attachments for the shipment. As we said, all events and attachments are visible also from TM for UN staff. And the planners, so the TS01 role and also the TS02, the FO manager, they can submit events and attachments on behalf of the goods vendor. So they can do that directly in the TM module. Okay. And the ones that are submitted in TM module are also visible in CCP. So let's say that we as a TM planner, we submit an event on behalf of the vendor. If the vendor is finally granted access to CCP, they will be able to see those events and attachments in the carrier collaboration board. All right. Once the first event is submitted, the freight order status will change to in execution. Remember that we said that when the freight order was created by the system and the carrier was assigned, the status was ready for execution. Once the first event is submitted, the status changes to in execution, and at that stage, no further changes are allowed in the route. Okay, so the execution of that freight order has already started, and no more changes will be allowed on that freight order because there was already an event for that particular freight order. Okay. Remember that the steps that you are currently performing for UNOE, let's say for vehicles in Umoja, still remain. Okay, so for example, in case we are talking about DAP scenario, so after the execution of the goods vendor stage, you still need to do the physical good receipt, right, in order to specify and to add those items into inventory. Okay. In the case of an FCA scenario, at that stage, you will not do a physical good receipt because there is still a second stage that the freight forwarder is responsible for. But after the goods vendor stage has been completed, at that stage, you need to do the virtual good receipt and then the stock transport order to move the items from the handover location up to the final destination. Okay, so the Umoja, so the current Umoja documents to perform physical receipt, virtual receipt, and to move items from the handover location up to the final destination still remains. Okay. All right. So we have completed. Yeah.
Sorry, Leandro, just 1 second. I believe there's been a hand raised in the participants list. Alan, if you wish to speak up, I'm going to unmute you now.
Yes, this is Alan. Brian, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Yeah, Leandro, you mentioned about goods vendors will be able to see freight orders in the CCP. My questions are, would they also be able to see the goods order, or would we be able also to disseminate to them the goods order in the CCP? That's question number one. And second, if they are able to see freight orders in the CCP, how will they know that there's a freight order in the CCP? Will they receive some kind of an email alert? And the third question is, would we be able to communicate or follow up with them in the CCP on certain events that they're responsible for, but for example, they have not taken action? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alan.
Right, thank you, Alan. So when we talk about freight orders, so freight orders are the different legs for which they are responsible for. You mentioned about goods order, like you're referring to POs or purchase orders, or what are you referring
Yes,
to?
I'm referring to POs for the vehicles, for example.
Yeah. So in the carrier collaboration portal, it's only meant for the shipment part. Okay. So they will only be able to see the shipment related part. So they will also be able to see that the freight orders relate to a PO. Okay. But what they will see there are the different freight orders for which they have to submit events. So the different shipments that they are responsible for. Okay, and then each shipment relates to a particular PO. And what we will see there are the different shipments or freight orders. Okay.
So that means to say we will continue to disseminate to them the PO for the goods or the PO for the vehicles in the usual way, which is by emails.
Yeah, I mean we can confirm that part later. So I'm not sure about that part if we still need to. Okay. Yeah.
And my related questions to those were, if they will be able to see a freight order in the system, how will they know that there is a freight order in the system, will they
Yeah.
receive some kind of an email alert that there is
Yeah,
a freight
there
order
will be some
pending for them?
notifications. There will be some notifications related to not only um, when the freight orders appear in the Carrier Collaboration Portal, but also when different events are submitted. Okay, so we will talk about that next week, about the notifications that are related to each action. So every time there will be an event, a new event, or every time there will be a new freight order, there will be some related notifications so that everybody's aware on what's going on with that particular shipment. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And the last question, that was the second one related to the notifications and
Yeah,
the
the last
third.
question was, would we be able to communicate with them in the CCP
Yeah.
with regards to certain events? For example, say we need to follow up with them, or some attachments are missing, or attachments are incorrect, or do we
Yeah.
have to
I
communicate
kind of.
with them
Yeah.
outside of the CCP on those things?
Yeah. Good question. So as far as I know, there is no emailing through CCP. Okay, but we'll confirm that part. Okay, Alan.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alan, for those 3 questions. If anyone else wants to speak up now before Leandro continues, please let us know.
All right. So let's complete our poster. Okay, and I know that this is the first day we are seeing all the different faces, and it might be a little bit cumbersome for you today. Okay, but the good thing is that we will be referring to this poster throughout all the training, so that once or when we are doing a specific exercise or when we are talking about a particular step, we always know at which stage of the end-to-end process we are talking about. Okay. So we just reviewed the goods vendor stage for the execution and monitoring phase. Let's talk about how will work the execution and monitoring when the freight forwarder is responsible for the events and attachments. It will work in a very similar way. So the freight forwarder will have access to submit events and attachments, and then UN, so planners and also freight order managers will be able to see in TM all the submitted events and attachments, or they can do the same thing, or they can submit events and attachments on behalf of freight forwarders. Okay, so there are no changes on what we said for goods vendor. There might be some specific events or specific attachments mandatory for freight forwarders. They will be granted access to CCP, and they will be able to submit events and attachments. We said, so everything that is in CCP, it's also displayed in TM, and the planner and the FO manager can also do it on behalf of the freight forwarders. And what the same thing that we said for the freight orders also apply here, right? So when the first event is submitted, the freight order changes to in execution, and no more changes are allowed in that particular freight order. And once we have the freight forwarder stage completed, then we can have the physical good receipt completed in Umoja. Okay, so we don't have to forget about the other Umoja related documents. Okay, so after we complete the freight forwarder stage, we will have the physical GR in Umoja. Okay, all right. So I know that that was only an overview of the end-to-end process, so we don't want to overload you with too much information, but we want to make sure that you understand the end-to-end process. And in here, as the last 2 slides, we have indicated the roles, okay, that are new in this transportation management module. Okay, so we have the transportation planner and execution. That is here you have even the code, okay, the planner and the execution, for which I mean the main function is to create the freight orders to execute the transportation plan, okay, and they can also submit events and attachments, okay, and there will be 3 different type of flavors for the planners, okay. We have one planner for UNOE, another one for COE, and another one for troops. And remember that for UNOE, in phase 1, we are only going with planning vehicles, but after phase 1, we will be incorporating other type of commodities, other type of UN-owned equipment, and for that we'll be using the different purchase groups, okay? And the planners will be linked to those purchase groups, so we can have different planners planning the transportation based on the different purchase groups, okay? And that the purchase group in SRM is the one that will default or will derive the planner group in TM. Okay. Then we have another role that is the FO manager. Okay, that this role cannot create the freight order, so they cannot perform planning, but they have been granted access to the freight orders to modify the dates, the charges, the carrier. So remember that as we said in the end-to-end process, after the freight forwarder has been awarded, we still need to go to TM to update the route, to update dates, charges, carriers. So that's the role that has been designed for that purpose. And also this role will also grant access to TM to submit events and attachments, okay, and to see all the different events submitted by the external partners. Then we have another role, the 03, that is the display all, so no creation and update, but it provides access to display all the TM documents, DTRs, forwarding orders. So this forwarding order doesn't apply to UNOE, it's mainly for COE and troops, so it doesn't apply to this session. Freight units and freight orders. Then we have other roles, the TS04, that will be responsible for maintaining the master data. And when we talk about master data, we talk mainly about 2 different things. One is the transportation network, and the other one is the transportation rates. The rates in order to calculate the charge estimates. And when we talk about the transportation network, we talk about the different locations and the different lanes, zones, so that the system can calculate the different transportation proposals based on our network. Okay, and we will be having some sessions specifically for master data maintainers to know how to update the transportation network and how to update also the different transportation rates. Okay. And lastly, we have 2 different roles. One is the 05, the TS05 for CCP. That will be the role that will be provided for external partners to have access to CCP, to the Carrier Collaboration Portal. And 07, that is a new role that provides access to Umoja BI, because there are some reports and some analysis workspace that are being developed for this project, and still under development, but it's a new role that is already available and will be granted once the reports and the analysis workspaces are available. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you, Leandro. I believe there are no more questions, or at least there haven't been while you were speaking. Thank you for going over the roles. We do have some more time. We don't have to stay here for the 10 minutes that are left, but if you do have any questions or anything you'd like Leandro to clarify, now would be the moment. Okay, Asmi, I'm going to unmute you. It hasn't been working so far, but maybe now it does. Okay, it seems there's a trouble with your audio because we cannot hear you. But if you want to ask the question through the chat, I'll verbalize it later on. Any other questions aside from Asmi? Okay, well, it seems like...
Hello?
Yes!
Okay, this is Alex Mufcon.
Hi,
Hi,
Alex.
everybody. So I have some questions related to the scope of work and some other issues. So I didn't want to bother you before. Those who are not interested, they can do the duties right now. But for your team, the scope of work has a requirement which should be then copied to the ITB, RFP, then to the technical evaluation and to the purchase order. So is any possibility to, like we are doing, generate scope of work, and after the generation of the scope of work to generate template for technical evaluation, purchase order, and other documents? Are you with me?
You're still muted, Leandro, sorry.
Did you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me now? Because I think I was muted.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, thank you, Alex, for the question. So you're referring to this scope of work document, right?
Yes.
That is generated, and if I'm not mistaken, the project team is working in different templates and to incorporate different elements, right? And they also mentioned that this document can be edited offline, but things, I mean, a lot of things with that document are still under development, so I think it's better that we discuss, or we can ask the project team what's the status on that, and we can update you more on that next week, because as of today, we only know that there are going to be different templates for the different types of commodities, kind of UNOE, COE, and troops, and that it will be editable offline. But I think that the specific questions, you mentioned that you wanted to include the...
No, this scope of work, after the scope of work will be, let me say, edited and saved. It should automatically generate the template for the technical evaluation, for the purchase order, for the RFP or ITB, because it's totally the same requirement.
Yeah.
So, and all the time, if we are doing this manually, there are some mistakes. But if it will be generated automatically, I'm pretty sure that we will avoid mistakes.
Okay, thank you.
But it can be discussed later.
Yeah.
Another issue.
Yeah.
In between scope of work and ITB, there is some document which created by procurement. This is source selection plan, SSP. Will it be still required, or we can just cancel this requirement of source selection plan? Because it also takes a time.
But
for procurement to create, for us to let me say, to also to sign this and so on. Do we need it if we will have this
do you think
everything?
I mean, based on what you've seen in the end-to-end process, do you see any change on that part? I mean, will that document benefit from? Why do you say it can be removed?
Yeah, I strongly believe it should be removed.
Okay, just quickly.
We have.
Sorry for interrupting, Alex. Just Babakar wants to speak up, so I'm going to unmute him. I believe he wants to take a stab at this question. Hello, Babakar.
Hello. Thank you, guys. So just for Alex question regarding the technical evaluation and the recommendation that can be generated from the system. So it was raised after the PIT exercise, has a feedback, and we replied that we will work with them to get the requirements in order to add a new template, a new document generation into TM. But as of the version that will go live, there will be no other document than the SOW. Alex?
Okay. Okay, so I have some, I understood it's better to discuss with Babacar, so to avoid others, let me say.
Yeah, because the thing is just...
So, Babacar, I have something like, approximately like 10 questions another to you on the system. So, but I will be with you maybe in half an hour for the test.
So yeah, maybe we can discuss that directly, the two of us, to make sure.
Okay.
But we will share as well with other people, because if they have similar requirements or questions, we share the outcome of our discussion.
So thank you, Babacar and Alex, for that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So I think also Alex is a little bit advanced user, okay? But we want to make sure that at least the 30 people we have connected in this WebEx session, that you have a kind of overview of the process, because I know that Alex and Asmin, you have been doing testing during PIT, and you might be familiar with the different steps, roles, and how the system looks like. But I mean, main outcome of this training is to make sure that the other 25 people understand the end-to-end process, and you know, and you have a basic understanding and what's expected from you from January 15th. Okay. So if there is no further questions, we thank you for participating, and we'll have the session tomorrow on the COE, and we look forward to see you next week in the in-person training in HQ. Okay. So thank you very much.
Hey, thank you all.